And welcome everyone. I'm Wiwi Darmiasi from the Matsunaga Institute for Peace. Thank you for joining us today on our Careers in Peacebuilding Talk Story series. This event is also co-sponsored by Conflict and Peace Specialists at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Now I'd like to pass it over to our professor, Dr. Maya Soetoro, who will be moderating today's session. Maya, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Wiwi. Thank you also to Jose Barzola. Both of you have long stewarded and so well this Careers in Peacebuilding series. For those of you in the audience today live, perhaps share in chat for a moment where you are coming from and what brings you here. I am extremely grateful for our guest today, Sam Mihara, who has so much incredible lived experience. And to begin, I think that Sam has a presentation for us. In the interest of time, I would like to respectfully and lovingly invite us, Mr. Mihara, to introduce himself and this topic. For us, I will then share some questions that have been shared with me of interest to many, and will invite you in the audience if you would like to also ask Mr. Mihara some questions. In a couple of minutes, though, I would just like to say that Mr. Mihara was a child of 9 years old at the start of World War II, when he was imprisoned for 3 years in a camp in Wyoming with armed guards. And it was that series of experiences and memories that have led him to be such a powerful and effective advocate for social justice, and to speak in nuanced ways about mass imprisonment and the need for all of us to vigilantly love one another, take care of one another, and practice thoughtful inclusion and fight for human rights. So, Mr. Mihara, I invite you now to come and set the stage for our audience and give your presentation, and I look forward to our question and answer period afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Maya. Can everyone hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, glad to have you all join me. Let's go straight to screen share and start with my title chart. It looks like this. I call this Memories of Injustice because it's based on what I remember during those difficult days in 1942 to 1945. And the way to start this is going back before I was born, the hate against all Asians coming into the U.S., it was really bad. In particular, excuse me, my phone is going crazy. Just a moment. Okay. So we have these kinds of political cartoons in the media. This one shows an Asian with a bloody knife in his mouth and a smoking gun, and he's standing over this woman he just killed, a white woman. And the caption is "Yellow terror threatens white women." Awful, but this type of hate campaign existed a long time ago before I was born. And so our parents and our grandparents had a lot of difficulty as immigrants from Japan and trying to settle in this country. But the way to start the program is to introduce my family. This is the Mihara family. A picture was taken around 1941. That young, defiant brat with the folded arms, that's me. I was about 7 years old in the picture. My brother's next to me, my father's behind me, my mother's standing to the right, and grandfather and grandmother Mihara are seated. The elder Miharas figured out that in order for the family to succeed as immigrants, they wanted to make sure my father had a good education. So they sent him to a college in Japan called Waseda University. And he majored in all topics. He majored in English literature. So he was a really talented writer of English articles. And that's where he got his job in San Francisco, working for a newspaper, a bilingual newspaper, writing English articles. After the December 7th attack on Pearl Harbor, life became miserable for people of Japanese ancestry in the United States. And we started seeing all kinds of hate campaigns. Here's an example. Here's a stream of Japanese who are marching, starting from Washington State, going through Oregon, building up more people. They come to Southern California, where there's a huge army of local Japanese going to a distribution station. The fellow hands out boxes of TNT, nitroglycerin bombs, and gives instructions to destroy the defense installations. Terrible cartoon. But notice the artist in the corner in the bottom, Dr. Seuss, a children's artist, and he made more of these types of awful cartoons describing the local Japanese as being dangerous. There was a photographer in those days, a lady by the name of Dorothea Lange. Dorothea was very skilled in taking pictures of people. And so the government asked her to go to San Francisco in 1942, start taking pictures of Japanese people in the process of the government removing us from our homes and placing us into camps. And the instructions they gave to Dorothea was do not take embarrassing photos. Don't take pictures that make the government look bad. And it turns out she doesn't take orders. Dorothea takes pictures she thinks will be important, and I'm going to show you some today. But this first picture she took, she came to my grammar school in San Francisco, a grammar school about 2 blocks from my house, and she took pictures of my buddies in my fourth grade class. The guy with the striped t-shirt, he went by the name of Hisashi Kobayashi. The problem most of us had was our given names from our parents were difficult to pronounce. As a result, a lot of us changed our names to make it easier to pronounce. In this case, pardon me. In this case, Hisashi decided to call himself Kobe, like the basketball player. And so Kobe became known as Kobe Kobayashi. And others of us also changed their names. Here's another buddy of mine in the second row. These are Japanese Americans. The guy in the middle went by the name of Katsutoshi Ito. His father said that was an awful mistake. No one knows how to pronounce your name. So he changed his name to Willie. He became known as Willie Ito. And I'll talk more about Willie in a moment. The most famous photo taken by Dorothea is this one here. It's a group of second-grade girls doing their morning Pledge of Allegiance. And all of you know in the pledge there's a very important phrase, and that reads, with liberty and justice for all. When an armed guard removes you from your house and sends you to a prison, escorts you to a prison, you've lost liberty, and there was no justice at all. So that was the most important violation of the Constitution, and I'll get back to that in a moment. So Dorothea kept taking more photographs. She took this picture of the headlines of the San Francisco newspaper, and it says ouster of all, and then that awful four-letter J word, abbreviation for the proper name Japanese. And so the media is spreading hate among the readers, urging that the readers demand removal of the people of Japanese ancestry. Awful, how the media treated the people of Japanese ancestry. Here's a billboard that went up half a block from my house, and it says bye-bye, and then the awful four-letter J word. I mean, how would you like it if somebody put up a billboard close to your house that says bye-bye? You know, whatever your racial or religious affiliation might be. That would be terrible. But it happened in San Francisco, a very short distance from my house. Roosevelt made many good decisions, but he made an awful mistake on what to do about the Japanese, Germans, and Italians living in this country. What he did was he turned to his military advisors and asked them, what should I do? And these military advisors said, Mr. President, you need to sign an executive order. And that order gives the power to remove people to the military. You don't have to name the race. All you do is give the power. And he signed it on February 16, 1942. With that signature, the military now had the power. So who are the military who has that power to remove people? Well, here's a map of the 5 military districts of the United States in 1942. There was an Eastern Defense Command headed by a Lieutenant General, a Central, a Southern, a Western, and a Pacific, which includes Hawaii. You may recall the name General Emmons, who was in charge in 1942. It turns out 4 out of the 5 generals said, no, we are not removing people of Japanese, German, and Italian. And in particular, in Hawaii and also in the Eastern Defense Command, those generals said, it doesn't make sense because these are good workers. We can't lose workers during the war, so why do that? As a result, people of Japanese, German, and Italian ancestry in Central, Eastern, Southern, and Pacific zones did not have to move. However, this one general in the Western Defense Command, Lieutenant General John DeWitt, he hated Japanese. He hated them with a passion. An example of how much he had, he defined who is a Japanese. He said children of mixed parents shall be removed. In fact, he said if there's a drop of blood in the background of a person, a drop who is Japanese, he shall be removed. So with that definition, all Japanese, even children with mixed parents, were forced to move out from their homes and move out of those 3 states in California, Oregon, and Washington, mostly on the West Coast. So Dorothy kept taking more pictures. Here's a picture of the sign that went up in front of my house and says, for people of Japanese ancestry, you have 1 week to move. That is 1 week from posting the sign signed by General DeWitt. 1 week to pack up, get rid of your belongings, and get ready to board the bus to take you to prison. Here's a photo taken by Dorothea of a typical family called the Masuda family in Northern California, getting ready for the move. Now the children are wearing dog tags. I remember my tag. It had my name and a prisoner number. The government gave me a prisoner number. I wasn't a criminal, but that doesn't matter. The government gave me a number, and that's what we all had to wear these dog tags. This photo taken by Dorothy turned out to be very embarrassing. It shows an armed guard doing a body search on an elderly lady looking for weapons, and he found none, so he puts her on the bus to go to prison. Behind the lady is a young child who's also getting a body search. I'm somewhere in the background waiting my turn to get a body search and then put on the bus to go to the prison. The first prison we went to were horse race tracks. This picture was taken at a horse race track near San Francisco called a Tanforan racetrack, and it was converted to a prison, and we were crammed in there for the initial visit to a camp, and we were held there for 3 months because it took 3 months to build the permanent camps. In these temporary camps, there were horse stalls. Again, picture taken by Dorothea Lang, with Japanese people living in horse stalls. I remember my stall. It was awful. Smell was absolutely terrible, but we had no choice. And they ran out of horse stalls. There were so many people, so they built more until they can house all about 10,000 people in these temporary camps. After 3 months, the trains came, and now the soldiers are shoulder to shoulder, making sure we get on that train and stay on that train. And we were on there for 3 days and nights until our train went to Wyoming, northern Wyoming. Here's a map of all the camps in the U.S. at that time. The little dots on the left in California are the horse race tracks. The triangles in the middle of the country are the big family camps. I went to the one in Heart Mountain, Wyoming. There's one in Idaho, one in Utah, one in Colorado, two in Arkansas, two in southern Arizona, and two on the eastern slopes of the Sierra Mountains of California. Each camp was huge. It had about 10,000 people, very, very large. This is the map of the Heart Mountain facility, 30 blocks. Each block had 24 barracks, each barrack holding about 25 people. I call it an American concentration camp because that's what it was, Americans being held in a concentrated fashion inside a camp in desolate Wyoming. Here's a picture of the Heart Mountain camp when I got there. That's Heart Mountain in the background. It's shaped like a heart. On the left are part of the 450 barracks. On the right is the barbed wire fence and one of the 9 guard towers that surrounded the camp. Here's a security system. The guard on the left is carrying a 30 caliber rifle standing on top of the guard tower pointing toward the barracks. In the middle is a guard tower with the floodlights that lit up the camp at night. And on the right side, there were signs in English and in Japanese. And it said stop for people of Japanese ancestry because there's a sentry and he has orders to shoot if you try to escape. As a result, no one escaped from Heart Mountain or any of the 10 camps during the 3 years. Not a single person permanently escaped. Here's a picture of our getting off the trains and onto these trucks with our hand carry bags, and we went through the main gate and into our assigned barracks. When we got there, the government gave us 2 numbers. Everyone received 2 numbers, and we can't forget these numbers. The first number is my room number or cell number. 14 is the block number, 22 is the barrack, and C is the room or the cell in the room in the barrack. The second number, 26737D is my prisoner number. The government gave me that number, very unique number. There's a file on me, as well as every one of the 120,000 people in the Washington, D.C. National Archives. My file contains all the records that were kept and gathered during the camp. It has my medical records, which are important to me to know what happened. It also has my grammar school grades, my report cards. I'm not going to show you them, they were embarrassing, but that's an example of how careful they were in keeping the records of everyone who was at the camp. If any of you know of anyone who has a relative who at the camp, I can help them get records, a copy of their records. Because of privacy rules, only the relatives can get them. So if anyone knows of anyone who has a relative in the camp who would like to see a copy, let me know. I'll be happy to show them how to get that. Here's the design of the barrack and the inside. This is the recreated barrack. It showed the compact situation. If you put in 4 beds, it's hardly room for anything else. There was no electricity, there's no running water. It was very, very difficult in that condition. Here's a picture of my family in front of the barrack. That's me in a white shirt, my brother's in a sweater. My mother's on the left, her 3 sisters, and an uncle. That photo was taken right in front of the barrack that I lived in. The toilets were embarrassing. If you can imagine 10 toilet bowls. I mean bowls, no seats, no seat covers, and no partitions. And when it came time to do your business, it really was embarrassing because there'll be 9 faces watching you at that right time. And then it's kind of embarrassing because there's no partitions, but we had to learn how to do it with people watching. That was really tough. The food that we had looked like this. The kid looking at you is eating a plate of potatoes. The mother's eating a plate of pickled vegetables. And in the pitcher, there was powdered milk. The problem was that's not the kind of food the Japanese ate in 1942. We love rice. We like fresh veggies. We like whole milk. But most important was veggies. And so the farmers in the camp grew some food for us. Outside the camp, they cultivated the land, irrigated, and grew some Japanese type veggies that we all enjoy. The winters were awful. The bottom line, minus 28 degrees. And we came, and there was no insulation in the barracks. There were open cracks in the siding, and it was very, very difficult that first winter in Wyoming. The schools looked like this. All it was empty barracks. And the carpenters built some benches. So we used these benches as desks for our grammar school. There was a hospital. All it was more barracks with a corridor. And our family had many difficulties in a medical area. In particular, my father had a case called glaucoma of his eyes. As you know, glaucoma, if it's not properly treated, you can go blind. My father had early signs of glaucoma in San Francisco, and he was seeing a specialist at the University of California Medical School, and he was able to see, that is, until he came to the prison camp. And he learned quickly there was no one at the camp who knew how to take care of glaucoma. And the worst of all, General DeWitt would not let my father go back, even on a short visit, to see his specialist. As a result, my father went blind in camp. He never saw again. And that was a very difficult financial arrangement or financial results for our family. But that wasn't the worst. The worst in our family was grandfather. He died in camp. I found out later on that looking at his medical records, I found out the doctors thought he might have colon cancer. And so they tried an experiment. These amateur doctors knew nothing about how to make a person with cancer more comfortable. And they tried the experiment, which is to starve out the cancer. And they denied him nutrition. In fact, the medical records show the doctors prescribed giving my grandfather a, um, a, um, a, a medical solution, a laxative to clean out his interiors as a treatment for cancer. Anyway, it shows you the lack of adequate care that we had at these camps. Excuse me. That's right. At the end, there was an important attorney, a very heroic white attorney in San Francisco. His name is James Purcell. Mr. Purcell knew the conditions at the camp, and he took it on himself to file a lawsuit against the government, claiming in this one lady he found, Mitsuo Endo, who was a Japanese American, a little older than me, and her civil rights were removed when she was replaced into the camps. So he filed a lawsuit against the government demanding her release because it was unconstitutional. And that case went to Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you were right by a vote of a 9-0 unanimous. You must let her go. At the same time, let everyone go who are loyal to the United States of America. And that was the case, thanks to James Purcell, that we were able to be removed from the camp. So here is the trains that came to the camp to remove us. Excuse me. The trains came to remove us from the camp to take us back home. And the government decided to hide the existence of the camp. They took all the barracks, all of the barracks at Har Mountain, and sold them for $1 apiece, provided the new owners will remove it. And they cleared the land to create farms. So today, if you went to the area at Har Mountain, you'll see nothing but farmland. And we're trying to bring these barracks back to recreate the prison camp that used to be. When we got home, life was worse than when we left because our neighbors put up these kinds of signs that says, keep moving. This is no longer your neighborhood. And our parents and grandparents had a lot of difficulty finding jobs, finding housing. It was very, very difficult for our parents. A little later on, there was an exhibit at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington. Outside of the exhibit, there was a photograph of Dorothea Lange's poster girl. And inside the exhibit were pictures of families who were in the camp, like this one here. This is U.S. Army Sergeant Kaz Masuda in uniform, in U.S. Army uniform, came to say goodbye to his family. And after the picture was taken, Sergeant Masuda was shipped off to Italy, where he fought for this country. And the sad news is Sergeant Masuda died fighting for this country, while at the same time the government had imprisoned the entire family. That was terrible, but that photo was sent to the White House, and it got to the attention of no less than President Ronald Reagan. President Reagan said, this is the time. So he signed a bill that came from Congress that made it official. It included an apology and some money that helped to pay for the loss of damages that we had at that time. Har Mountain today, a beautiful mountain, still there. We did something different at our camp. We built a school. It's called a learning center, and outside it looks like barracks, and the inside it looks like a series of schoolrooms or exhibits where it's a self-guided tour and people can learn in much greater detail than I can talk about in this short time. But it teaches the people about what really happened at these camps. We bring in people from all over, especially school children, all year round to teach them. And we do a pretty good job of educating a lot of people throughout the year. I'm going to close out here with some snapshots of my buddies who were in the camp with me. Kobe Kobayashi. He Most of our parents urged us to get a good education to help solve the problem of hate that we experienced. And so a lot of my friends and myself, we went to Berkeley across the bay from San Francisco, UC Berkeley. And Kobe became a pharmacist. He did very, very well, successful career owning a pharmacy. Willie Ito, Willie was a little different. Willie knew a long time ago he did not want to go to college. He wanted to be the world's best cartoon artist. So he went to an art school and he was hired by Walt Disney. And he did very well at Walt Disney. He learned how to create Disney characters very quickly, and he did very well. Around that time, Disney put out a movie. You may have seen this scene. It's called Lady and the Tramp. There were two dogs sipping a noodle until their lips met. And that movie was made by no less than Willie Ito. Now, Willie became famous as the cartoon creator for Walt Disney. I went to Berkeley. I went to UCLA graduate school, majored in engineering, hired by the Boeing Company. I helped develop rockets that went to the moon, rockets that put up satellites. Enjoyed a terrific 42-year career at Boeing. But after I retired, I decided to do something totally different, which is doing what I'm doing today, which is giving lectures to educate people all over the country. And I really enjoy doing that. Oh, whatever happened to the poster girl, that iconic image of Dorothea Lange? Well, she grew up. She looks more like this today. Her eyes are the same, the nose the same. She calls it a Japanese nose. And she changed her name twice. Her first name used to be Hideno. She changed it to Helene. Her last name used to be Nakamoto, another typical name, and she changed it to Mihara. We've been married for some 70 years now, but a lot of people didn't know that. Yeah, we got married, and we have two granddaughters and uh, two daughters and two grandchildren, and everyone has gone to college, so we're okay. We did fine with our family. But I want to conclude with a thought. Uh, at one time it was Japanese. It could have been Germans and Italians. Today, it could be someone else. It could be somebody you know. This might be your son who is looking at an armed guard with a worried look on his face. Where is he taking me? This could be your daughter inside the prison camp after 3 years, wondering, when do I get out? And this could be your son trying to climb out from the prison, not knowing there's a guard watching him with a rifle. So I simply say, never again to anyone at all. Never again. Well, that concludes my talk for today. I do now have some questions, and I think we'll go back to the, let's see how I do this. I think I go like this. Yeah, here we go. So we're now at gallery view. So Maya sent in several questions, and let me
First
answer
of
each
all,
one.
well, yes, I will go ahead and ask you those questions.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but also I would like to thank you, first of all, for that presentation. The images that you shared with us give us intimate understanding of what the experience might have been like. It, you know, is of course likely much more difficult than we can understand fully. But thank you for teaching us and for um, helping us to um, know the textures of history through those images and stories. Of course, there's a lot of tragedy there, but also in your sharing, you reveal enormous dignity and moments of connection, compassion, humanity, family, and brave community. And I thank you for sharing those experiences and this time with us. I'd love to ask you a couple of follow-up questions, a few. The first one is, how did your experiences really shape your understanding of not just justice and freedom, but also belonging in the United States?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I really believe the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is the most important document that we have. It guarantees liberty and it guarantees equal justice for everyone. So I believe that as long as leaders will adhere to the Constitution, I feel very strong that I belong in America. But it's when leaders fail to honor the Constitution that I get worried and I wonder, do I really belong here? So I really feel strong about leadership and the strength of the Constitution. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. And thank you for the reminder that we must be vigilant, that we have protections there and due process and procedure that we have to hold very dear. Um, Given all that you and your family went through, and I'm shuddering with grief to contemplate your father's blindness as well as your grandfather's passing during that time. Were there moments of kindness or sweetness that helped to sustain you and your family during that time? How did you all remain resilient?
Well, that is an interesting question. Um, it turns out our parents, who were first generation, um, they were raised in Japan and they were taught that the government is always right. The government only makes good decisions. If the government tells you to move, you move and don't complain. That's what they were taught. And that's why 120,000 people, except for a few people like Korematsu, 120,000 people did not complain, that they believe the government is right. And that's awful. But that is the heritage that our parents brought with them from Japan. Um, and the other factor is that the media was reporting progress during World War II. We were in the camps, but we were able to get newspapers and listen to radios, and we heard the progress that the Allied forces were making, especially in the Pacific. So we knew the end would be coming. We knew that this is not going to be forever. And so that gave us hope that the camps will be someday closed and we'll be able to return home. So that's what kept us going and sustained our family during that time.
Thank you. Um, Obviously, we are in a time where we are seeing both at the national and global level certain rights being taken away, or certain examples of behavior that is not compassionate or loving or just. I'd like to ask you what lessons you believe the internment and confinement of Japanese Americans at that time, what lessons does that hold for current peace builders and social justice advocates? What can we learn about how to move forward and through this time?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. It turns out there was a congressional hearing on the cause and the reasons why and lessons learned from this experience. And out of that hearing came the conclusion that there were three factors that resulted in our imprisonment. The first was hate, second was hysteria, and the third and most important is the weak leadership who failed to honor the Constitution. And so when you have the combination of these three, it could result in the injustice. So I look for peace builders who understand this lesson. I look forward to leaders who understand that, again, this Constitution is the most important document and they must adhere to the principles within that Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Mihara. In what ways do you see perhaps the legacy of internment camps still impacting communities today in terms of perhaps racism, exclusion, or xenophobia? Do you see some ongoing patterns and legacy?
Yeah, I see once in a while in the media um, people using the Japanese internment um, as an example of the result of hate against the race. And that is really unfortunate because in most cases, there was not a relationship to today's problem. The point is that, mass injustice against a race or a group is wrong and it's unconstitutional. So this idea that there's a legacy impacting communities today, you have to be careful and don't make the correlation of today's problems with what happened. What happened in those days was really very straightforward. You have this hate, hysteria, and the leadership who failed to honor the Constitution. And that's what's really most important, the legacy that we have.
I think that we are certainly seeing plenty of othering, right now, and a lot of people who are confining their understanding of other human beings to very narrow descriptors, and I see lots of trauma in that when we're not seeing people in fully human and humane ways and in multifaceted ways. There is hurt, and I see people being targeted, and simplistic understanding. And I guess I'm wondering what you think is necessary to heal those kinds of hurt, the racism and the injustice, and what is necessary to bridge communities, and how do you forgive the things that happened in the past, and how will we forgive the things that are happening at present? But you tell me a little bit more about what you think will bring true healing and forgiveness.
Well, let me first go back to the term forgiveness or forgiving. Um, I don't believe there can be forgiveness for what happened. Um, what could I do? Could I go to the grave of General DeWitt and demand an apology or offer forgiveness? No way. It doesn't do any good. What's more important is education. We must educate the public to make sure that these injustices never happen again. So if there's any healing at all, it's uh, it's the hurt that came from the injustice, and education is the key. That people realize it was wrong and it should never happen again. So I keep focusing on education, and that's what I do, what I'm doing, which I enjoy because I think having people know the reason why it happened is most important.
Thank you, and for being an exemplar and an educator. How can young people today stand up against injustice, and how can they be builders of peace in their communities? And how can they find their voices and their strength? Do you think?
Well, I've spoken to, in fact, my main audience are young people, high school and college level, and there are a couple of responses I get from the young people. Uh, First is the question, how much money did I get? I guess young people have worries about money. And the answer is $20,000. By the way, that was, you know, it doesn't come close to real damages that happened, but certainly most of us accepted it. But that was the amount of money that we received. But the more important question is by the young people is, what can I do? I'm only a student. What can I do to help? And the answer is to get ready, to be ready for the day when you'll be voting the leadership of the country. And make sure it's the leaders who believe in the Constitution, who adhere to the Constitution. That's what you want to do. And that's how you can make sure that we have a really strong leadership to avoid this problem from happening again.
Yeah, I know that we need upstanders, and we need young people to participate in democracy, to not only protect and preserve it, but perhaps to also reimagine it, in order for it to not only be effective, but also just. I want to ask if you could offer one piece of advice to future leaders and peace builders. What would it be? Something perhaps that helped you to move forward and to stand up. What would that advice be?
Well, in my experience, I think it's important to learn from the mistakes of the past. Um, we have to admit that no one is perfect. There have been mistakes in the past, and the proper solution is to speak up for equal justice, especially when there are situations where you find that unconstitutional actions are being taken or even considered. That's what's important. Everyone needs to speak up and let your voices be heard that it was wrong or it is wrong and it's unconstitutional if any attempt is made to not adhere to the Constitution. That's to me is very important.
Thank you. And hopefully, your example and that of others can help them feel less alone and more courageous. I really appreciate that you have taken your experiences and moved beyond even the parameters of your career to be an educator. There are other educators here in the room and others who will listen to this recording afterward. And I know that they are both appreciative and surely moved by your example. We have one in chat here, Stephen Chinen, he's a wonderful educator, and he writes, "Mahalo nui loa, Mr. Mihara, for your presentation. 2 years ago, I visited Mansanar. Now I hope to one day visit Heart Mountain. Malama pono, please take care." So and there's another educator here, Carmela, who asks about ways to research those who were in camp to understand better the experience in Colorado or other camps to sort of extend some of the understanding beyond this presentation. Do you have advice for these educators, both places where they can go to learn more about how to teach, where they can share the experiences, to learn from history, to help their students to be inspired and fortified by the courage of the past, and to be vigilant about the injustice of the past, moving forward? Are there particular resources or ways to learn more? We do have the Japanese Chamber of Commerce internee directory as a good place to start. Are there others that you know of, Mr. Mihara?
Well, there are several ways to learn. Certainly, there are several books written on the topic. Uh, there's a personal experience by attending a pilgrimage at one of the camps. I invite you, Maya, and others to come to the pilgrimage at Heart Mountain, which is at the end of July. And I guarantee you will learn about what really happened, and you'll get a feeling of the conditions that existed at the camp. You'll really enjoy a learning experience by coming to one of our pilgrimages. And I'll write to you, Maya, about that a little later on. But I think you especially will enjoy what we have to offer. But that's what's important, to immerse yourself into the environment where it happened. Go to the camps, learn about it through reading, talk to people who've been to the camps. This is the way to really learn about what happened.
Beautiful. And Farewell to Manzanar is a book there, and there are numerous others. And I do hope that we and others here or who are listening can visit your mountain. Here in Hawaii, of course, there is the Honouliuli National Park Service, the internment camp from which we can learn. This was a camp that opened in March of 1943. It was both a civilian internment camp and a prisoner of war camp that had approximately 400 internees and 4,000 prisoners of war over the course of its use. So do visit these and other spaces where history comes back to life, to deepen our understanding, to teach us, and to make us more powerful and committed advocates for social justice. Thank you, Beverly, for sharing that the Manzanar pilgrimage is April 26th of 2025, and you can also find more information about that online. Thank you so much for this time, and want to know if there is any final question from someone in the audience. And if not, Mr. Mihara, how would you like to close us out, and any parting words from you?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have this time with all of you. To be frank, I'd love to come out to Hawaii and give you a real in-person version, which I think you'll enjoy. I have more details about what happened, and hope the very best for all of you. Hope you can come out to one of our pilgrimage. And thank you very, very much for the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We mahalo you so much for your time, your energy, your commitment, and your lessons. Tomoyo Kawano says in chat, Mr. Mihara, I'm so extremely grateful to have had this opportunity to hear your story. I will always remember this. Mahalo nui. Anyone interested in also learning more about Hawaii internees can visit the Honouliuli National Historic Site, as I mentioned, and thank you for putting the link there. It looks like Ka'olini ko Kaimana Yasuoka had a great-grandfather. Issei was incarcerated at Sand Island, Honouliuli, Sharp Park, then Santa Fe internment camp. So we do have people here in the audience who have shared history braided with these camp communities, and other words of mahalo for your powerful presentation are there in chat. Thank you for this time. And with that, I say farewell until next time. Ahui ho.
Thank you all. Thank you much.